The laughter echoed across the luxury tennis court like cruel thunder. On one side, standing tall in her designer white outfit and diamond-studded earrings, was Clarissa Montgomery, the ruthless CEO of one of the city's most powerful companies. On the other side stood a man with worn-out shoes, a faded janitor's uniform, and calloused hands that told the story of endless hours scrubbing floors. His name was Daniel Reyes, a single father, a man life had battered but who never once let go of his dignity. What no one expected that day was that a challenge meant as mockery would unravel a secret so shocking it froze every spectator in their tracks. Before we go deeper, if you believe in kindness, in second chances, and in stories that remind us of the goodness buried in every heart, please take a second to like this video, share it with a friend, comment your thoughts, and subscribe to Kindness Corner. Every small action helps us spread more hope, and trust me, you won't want to miss where this story goes. Daniel had been working at the tennis club for nearly 6 years. The wealthy members never saw him as more than a shadow with a mop, someone who swept up their crumbs and polished their marble floors. He kept his head down, not because he was ashamed, but because he had a daughter waiting for him at home. Emily, a bright-eyed 12-year-old who loved books and carried an old teddy bear everywhere she went, was his entire world. Her mother had left when Emily was only a baby, and Daniel had promised himself he'd never let his little girl feel abandoned again. Every floor he cleaned, every insult he swallowed, was for Emily's future. Clarissa, however, was not the kind of person to show compassion. She had been raised in privilege, her life paved with opportunities and excess. She was known as cold, sharp-tongued, and ruthless in business, and she carried that same arrogance onto the tennis court. That day, as the sun blazed high above the green surface, she spotted Daniel carrying a bucket across the sidelines. Some of her friends were watching her play, and in a moment of cruel amusement, she called him out. "Hey, janitor," she sneered, "think you could beat me in tennis? Tell you what, if you do, I'll marry you." Her friends erupted into laughter, their mocking voices like daggers piercing Daniel's quiet pride. For a moment, Daniel's face flushed red. He wanted to walk away, to keep his head down like he always did. But something inside him, maybe the thought of Emily, maybe the years of silent humiliation, made him pause. He looked at Clarissa, then at the crowd, and he nodded. The air shifted instantly, the laughter fading into an anticipatory silence. No one had expected him to accept. The game was set. The rich onlookers gathered, whispering, certain this would be nothing more than another humiliation for the janitor. Clarissa twirled her racket with practiced confidence, while Daniel picked up an old spare racket from the storage room, its grip frayed and strings loose. His shoes squeaked awkwardly on the polished court. But then, he stepped to the baseline, and something about his posture changed. His grip tightened. His eyes sharpened. It was as though he had stepped back into a life he had buried long ago. The first serve came from Clarissa, fast and sharp, meant to embarrass him. But Daniel's body moved with instinct. His racket connected with the ball in a clean, controlled motion, sending it sailing back with precision. The crowd gasped. Clarissa blinked in disbelief. With each rally, it became clearer, this janitor was no amateur fumbling on the court. He moved with speed, grace, and power. The mop he carried every day had disguised a truth no one in that audience could have imagined. Years ago, Daniel Reyes had been one of the most promising young tennis players in the country. Life, however, had stolen his dream. A tragic accident, mounting hospital bills for his sick mother, and the sudden responsibility of raising Emily had forced him to abandon his career. The sport he loved had become a ghost of the past, something he had buried under janitorial shifts and sleepless nights. Yet here, under the cruel challenge of a mocking CEO, that ghost rose again. The game turned fierce. Clarissa's smirk faded as frustration crept in. The crowd, once laughing, was now on edge, unable to look away from the unfolding battle. Daniel's serves were like lightning, his returns unpredictable and sharp. Each point he scored was not just a strike against Clarissa, it was a vindication of every silent sacrifice he had made, every humiliation endured. Sweat dripped down his forehead, but he did not falter. He wasn't just playing for pride, he was playing for Emily, for the little girl who believed her father could do anything. By the final set, the court was silent except for the sound of rackets and the pounding of hearts. Clarissa fought hard, her face red with effort and humiliation, but Daniel was unstoppable. With one final, powerful serve, the ball flew past her racket and hit the back line. Match point. Game over. The crowd erupted, not in laughter this time, but in stunned, awed applause. Clarissa dropped her racket, her face pale. For the first time in her privileged life, she had been beaten at her own game, not by another wealthy rival, but by the man she had mocked as worthless. And worse for her pride, the deal she had made in jest now hung heavy in the air. "Beat me in tennis and I'll marry you," she had said. And Daniel had done just that. But Daniel didn't gloat. He didn't sneer or demand she keep her word. He simply walked off the court, his chest rising and falling, his eyes scanning the crowd until they landed on Emily, who had been watching the entire match from the sidelines. She ran into his arms, tears in her eyes, whispering, "I knew you could do it, Daddy." The crowd had frozen, not just because of the game, but because they had seen something rare, a man stripped of privilege, mocked and underestimated, rise with quiet strength and dignity. They had seen a father fight not with fists, but with skill and heart. Some even felt ashamed, realizing how many times they had overlooked him, how many times they had joined in the cruel laughter. Clarissa tried to laugh it off, claiming it had been a joke, but her voice faltered. She had been humbled in front of everyone. That night, she would go home realizing that all her wealth and arrogance could never compare to the kind of strength Daniel carried, the strength born of sacrifice, love, and resilience. And Daniel? He didn't care for their apologies or their stares. All he cared about was Emily's hand in his, and the knowledge that he had shown her the importance of standing tall, even when the world tried to keep you small. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you of the unseen battles people fight every day, please take a moment to like this video, subscribe to Kindness Corner, and share it with someone who needs hope today. These stories are not just entertainment, they're reminders of the quiet heroes living among us. Special request before we end, comment below what you would have done if you were in Daniel's shoes. Would you have walked away, or stepped onto that court to prove your worth?